dead. Though Mugabe had amended the constitution to allow greater powers of land designation, it seemed to many as if the government had forgotten about the landless rural majority. White farmers still owned most of the best land, and Zimbabwe's highest revenues came from their large commercial tobacco farms. White farmers grew rich. In the cities too, the lavish lifestyle of the emerging elite was a source of resentment to many. While a new class of capitalists feasted, landless peasants tried invading one or two commercial farms, but they were driven off by the police. Then, veterans from Zimbabwe's War of Liberation discovered that members of Mugabe's Politburo had been looting the War Veterans Compensation Fund. They were a poor but militant group who could control the rural areas where the majority of voters worked as peasant farmers. They had the ability to make or break Mugabe's power base.
The demands for compensations and for pensions, basically those were the demands. And for such welfare issues as education and health and so forth, those were the demands basically. Of course, Mugabe actually was surprised. This was a big shock to him.
Fearing a loss of power, Mugabe gave in. He paid out millions of dollars which the economy was not generating.
The $2,000 a month pension to war veterans and $50,000 handout was completely unbudgeted, completely, and certainly no discussion in Parliament. So all of these things indicated to the world, certainly, and to those of us who were thinking about it and who were involved there, that he was on the wrong track, that he had lost his, if he ever had any, he had lost his principles. And now he was looking after himself.
Land must be redistributed equitably, but the British have been fighting us, fighting the head of state, Comrade Mugabe. They don't want to understand that the Zimbabweans are in Zimbabwe. What Comrade Mugabe is saying and what the people of Zimbabwe are saying is that land must go back to the peoples of Zimbabwe.
With war veterans pressing, Mugabe needed to revive land reform. He reminded the British government of its promises to find funds to pay for it.
The Blair government came in, and the then Minister of Lands and Agriculture, Kumbrai Kangai, wrote and reminded them of the agreement that was signed at Lancaster House. And they were looking forward to, I suppose, another instalment so they could purchase more land.
Tony Blair refused, saying his government had no link to colonial interests and no responsibility to meet costs of land purchase. Blair finally did offer support, but with stringent conditions. Mugabe was incensed. He saw conditions as an imperialist interference in Zimbabwe's affairs. From that moment, Mugabe characterized Blair as public enemy number one, and himself as the African leader to stand up against imperialism. More than ever, his actions were now dictated by a total determination to stay in power. This pushed him to rely once again on military force, veterans from the War of Liberation.
Mugabe was the man of the moment until Mandela arrived. Sometimes I think some of the more obvious tragedies of Zimbabwe could have been out of a reckless attempt to reinvent himself.
When the Democratic Republic of Congo asked for military help to resist invasion, Mugabe had the opportunity to show his prowess. He led the way.
He quickly deployed the Zimbabwe military with huge costs, which costs Zimbabwe up until now has not yet recovered from.
But it kept the top-level military happy. Congo afforded rich pickings.
So it was an ego trip that cost the nation a huge amount of money.
The cost of the war decimated an already weak economy. Inflation spiraled, protesters took to the streets. Trade unions, students, religious and human rights groups formed the National Constitutional Assembly. A new constitution was essential to vote Mugabe out of power.
At the time, we wanted to create a really genuine process of reforming the constitution of the country with a view to providing a platform for activism of the next generation. Within a year, we had quite, massive meetings, massive protest actions demanding constitutional reform.
Police were deployed against civilian protesters in an orgy of violence.
They cannot control the prices in Zimbabwe here, so they are useless people. We don't want them.
A new political party was formed. Morgan Tsvangirai was elected leader. It was called the Movement for Democratic Change.
The people who went to the MDC came from that movement of the NCA and the trade unions. Tsvangirai, being the Secretary General of the ZCTU, the trade union, then represented more the trade union component.
This is a serious matter.
A referendum on a new constitution was the only way to unseat the president.
Tauya pano kuzozadzisa chirevo nekuti 1980 patakadzisa Union Jack mugiraundi muno tauya kuzozdzisa flag yeZANU-PF mugiraundi muno.
The government quickly reacted by wanting to hijack it by saying, okay, fine, we can reform the constitution, but it is not you people who do it, these activists in the NCA and others. We would set up our own commission, which they did in 1999. That commission was to go around do hearings. It was designed to hijack the process.
My opinion is that the people are going to vote yes, by and large, and that they will support, therefore, the draft constitution as presented them. An executive president with a prime minister who also shares executive powers, but appointed by the president.
ZANU had canvassed for a yes to Mugabe's new constitution, while the opposition had mounted a vigorous campaign for a no.
Well, let me go and vote.
And then afterwards?
Yes, I'll talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
This morning, the Registrar General brought me the final copy of the results. Of over 1 million Zimbabweans who participated in the process, the majority of them voted against the draft constitutional document. Government accepts the result and respects the will of the people as expressed through these results.
President Mugabe didn't have any new ideas to sell to the people. And he then jumped on the bandwagon of land to the people as a mantra coming from the war veterans.
This threat of loss of power then became the fast-track land reform program.
A few weeks after losing the referendum, Mugabe launched the farm invasions.
So we are taking back the land.
nicely, no problem, peacefully.
It's not the land that was the problem. It's the fact that the white commercial farmers, together with their workers, close to over 500,000 of them, were seen as the backbone of MDC support. They had to be punished for writing checks to MDC. Their workers had to be punished for voting against the referendum, constitutional referendum that President Mugabe wanted.
With AKs, and when we were trying to leave, they fired shots. They fired 5 shots, and this guy got hit here in the leg.
When the war veterans once again took the lead, and went onto the farms occupied, I said, no policeman shall remove them from those farms.
The police were heavily involved in transporting farm invaders from farm to farm. The state was sponsoring farm invasions.
"46 years, now we're running. Now we're running. Now we're running.
Never mind.
Everything you see has been done. We've built this up from scratch, right up. And we're not getting 1 penny for it. Nothing. Nothing."
Whoever gets disappointed is not our... we will not share the blame for that.
Because of the hard-hearted nature of the Rhodesians, who had remained racist, remained ununderstanding, without accepting the hand of friendship that we had extended to them.
And the truth must also be told that there's a lot of black people right now who are being dispossessed by these so-called chefs. So it's also important to realize that it's not only the white commercial farmers that have suffered. There's a lot of black people that have lost their property at the hands of ZANU-PF.
The majority of those who own land now are black, but they are not just your ordinary black people. They are supporters of Mugabe's ZANU-PF party. The majority of them are politicians. Some of them are civil servants. A few are businessmen and businesswomen who support ZANU-PF. People who are not members of ZANU-PF have not been resettled.
War veterans bullied independent judges into resigning. The president appointed ZANU-aligned judges to replace them. Laws were passed to stifle opposition and silence the media.
I think between Smith and Mugabe there's a continuity, because you have a state apparatus which was inherited by Mugabe, and things were maintained. The state of emergency, for one, was maintained, and many of the laws around the media, the repressive use of state machinery. And Mugabe has maintained that, and he has in many ways actually developed it.
Club, we can defeat them one and all. I know you believe, and I believe. Vote Comrade Robert Mugabe for president on 27 June 2008. All good things are possible.
ZANU-PF has run a propaganda machine, which has been very efficient, which demonizes anybody who dares to stand up and question what ZANU-PF does.
The Minister of Information unleashed venom nightly on television, Professor Jonathan Moyo.
The Zimbabwean independent newspapers remained the only mass media allowing any freedom of speech. Mugabe meant to teach them a crushing lesson.
On one occasion, he said, the Daily News has gone too far. Something will have to be done about it. This was on TV on a Friday night. On Sunday night, the printing press of the Daily News was destroyed in a not so mysterious bomb explosion.
Incredibly, the Daily News found another press and came out next day featuring details of its own bombing. Mugabe then brought in new laws and finally closed the paper down. But the people of Zimbabwe continued to believe in democracy. In the towns, they had high hopes of change in the upcoming presidential election.
I want a parliament which has got a vibrant opposition. If it's MDC, that forms the government. So ZANU is the opposition. I want it to be vibrant.
Doesn't matter what Blair does. He and his running dogs, the MDC do.
Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe will never, never be a colony again. Zimbabwe will never be.
I often wonder why President Mugabe's party does not seem to have faith in its own ability to win an election that is free and fair. If I ever have an opportunity to talk to President Mugabe, I'll put this question to him. Why he does not seem to have faith that he can win an election that is devoid of violence, in which his rivals can reach the people through the media freely. Why he assumes that if that happens, then he will lose.
The run-up to the election was terrifying. In the rural areas, ZANU-PF recruited unemployed youth to intimidate and brutalize the local population into voting for them.
Vakanga vangori nechinangwa chekuti ndisava ndinoenderera mberi nebato reMDC. Saka vakaedza pavaigona napo kuuya vachindivhundutsira vachiti kana ukaramba uchiita zvauri kuita izvozvo togona kukuuraya. Saka vakatanga kundirova vachinditocha. Tiri mugomo ndo pavaindipisa vanga vakavesa moto wavo wavaidziya. Saka pamoto apa vaiva nesimbi dzavaiti iwaya yavaiti vakaisa moto inotsvuka. Asi vasati vandipisa vaiti vaindirepa vaita zvokuchinjana vari vatatu vachiti kana wovhunza kuti iwe wanyara here iye woti aiwa handina zvonzi akasira mhani kasira iwe hausi kuona kuti uri kunonoka here. Pavakazopedzisira ndichanyanya kunzwisisa zvandoita vakandibvunza kuti uchiri kuda MDC here.
There has been an attempt to equate the violence as clashes between two political parties. Far from it. The violence that we have experienced in this country is state terrorism against its own citizens.
I am convinced, I might be totally wrong, that if a stand had been taken when Mugabe unleashed the 5th Brigade in Matabeleland, if the rest of the world, if Zimbabweans had said we are not going to have any of that, and anybody that is guilty of those activities should be brought to book, I doubt very much whether we would be talking of 29 people dead during this run-up to the elections.
We are totally defenseless. We know there is nothing you can do to protect ourselves. That's why we are here. We are displaced.
Terrified opposition voters fled the rural areas, while in the urban areas, every effort was made to hinder voting.
Can voting stop at the following police stations where it is alleged voting is in progress? Are you ready to take down? Can polling cease at those polling...
And nothing is happening. We are not voting. They are trying to frustrate us.
Yes. Since 5 o'clock.
Since 5 I've been here starting from 6:45.
And they said they are going to open at 7.
They haven't opened yet. I don't know what's the problem.
They said 7 o'clock and we've been here since 4 o'clock. They haven't opened. What are they doing? People are now hungry. They want to make sure that we don't vote within 2 days. Yes.
Now you look at the queue.
See, there is riot police here, which is beating up people. And people are scared of being beaten.
Well, I think the terror campaign has been the most prominent part of Mugabe's leadership. Armed gangs of people who can masquerade there as either members of youth service